Hello and welcome to MakeUseOf Reviews. I'm James Bruce, reviews editor, and for the past few weeks I've been playing with the PlayStation VR. And to celebrate the launch, we are doing a massive giveaway, including the PlayStation VR headset itself, a twin pack of motion controllers, the PlayStation Worlds game, and a PS4 500GB slim model. So even if you don't have a PS4 yet, you can still get in on the action. And if you do already have one, then hey, give it to a friend. To enter the competition, just click on the link in the description where you can also read our full review. So what do I think of the PlayStation VR? How does it compare to the other headsets? Is it worth the $400 asking price? Keep watching to find out. So I should preface this review by saying that I already own both the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive. And while I will try to review this as unbiased as I can, it is possible that I've been completely spoilt by these headsets for the past 6 months. So I will inevitably be comparing the PlayStation VR to those at some point. As such, I haven't experienced the same wow moments that you might when experiencing PlayStation VR for the first time. Now, unlike the HTC Vive or the Oculus Rift, which feature Fresnel lenses and can result in artifacts like God rays or concentric rings that you can see when there are bright lights on a dark background, the PlayStation VR uses a more normal kind of lens, similar to the Oculus Rift development kit 2 had. There is a smaller sweet spot, so you will need to adjust the headset a bit more, but it results in virtually no artifacts. So the display itself is really crisp and clear, and I couldn't tell any difference in field of view either. Unfortunately, the lenses inside the headset don't physically move, so if you have an IPD which is outside the normal range, you may find it difficult with this headset to adjust comfortably. The screen resolution is actually about 10 to 20% lower than the HTC Vive or the Oculus Rift. And while you won't notice this in most games, in anything where there are distant objects, you will really notice the lower resolution. There's also less of a screen door effect on the PlayStation VR, which is the mesh-like pattern that you can see between pixels. And I presume this is because of the pixel layout of the screen used inside PSVR. The pixels are just closer together, so there's less of a gap in between them. But look, my point is that it looks pretty good. It's roughly on par with both the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive. There's very little difference in actual visual quality. So the headset itself is loosely based on the older Sony HMZ series personal cinema displays. It features a rigid head strap which completely removes any weight from the headset resting on your face. It doesn't rest on it at all, in fact. Now this is in stark contrast to the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive, which basically consist of a band that straps around your face and pulls the headset in towards you. And this can be uncomfortable for a lot of people. Most reviews have said that this is the most comfortable headset they've worn for extended periods of time. There's also a button underneath the headset here in which you can pull out the display and push it in so it's closer to your face or further away. That said, I did find that there was a lot of light leaking around my nose. Obviously, I have a funny nose, which doesn't quite fit in here properly. Connecting the PSVR to your PlayStation and TV is not as hard as some people would make out. Simply disconnect the existing HDMI cable from your TV and plug it into the breakout box supplied with the PSVR. The breakout box also needs power and a micro USB connection to your PlayStation itself. Then from the breakout box, there's a further extension cable, and then the headset plugs into the extension cable. Along the headset cable is this small control box with power and volume buttons, and a breakout 3.5mm socket for plugging in the supplied earplug headphones or your own preferred pair of headphones. Or you can simply leave them unplugged and use your existing sound system. Once you've plugged everything in, it pretty much works out of the box, though I would suggest going into settings and running through the IPD adjustment. Glasses wearers, don't worry, you can fit your glasses inside the headset just fine. I had no problem with mine, though you may not be able to push the headset as close to your face as you might like, which will lead to a little bit of light leakage around the nose, which I found really annoying. I also had quite a frustrating time with the setup of the camera to watch the tracking LEDs on the front of the headset. It would often tell me that I had to recalibrate by standing inside a tiny circle, which leads me on to the absolutely terrible tracking. So motion tracking for the headset and the Move controllers is done using the same aging camera-based technology which the PlayStation has had for a while. This kind of tracking is sort of similar to the Oculus Rift in that there's a webcam that watches you, but while the Oculus Rift uses an infrared-based system and can cut out visible light, the PlayStation VR uses a regular old webcam and simply looks for the colored LEDs on both the front of the headset and the controllers, leaving it susceptible to regular light interference. Unfortunately, that means the tracking is pretty bad, and you'll see a lot of issues with the Move controllers. There's a lot of jitter, they'll move around a lot. Tracking of the headset isn't quite as bad in that it won't move around so much. However, if you place the controllers anywhere around there above your head such that it gets in the way of the light, then the camera gets confused and your position in the VR world will suddenly lurch forward or move around or wobble.
I feel like the camera goes forward, back, forward, flashing.
Now this is a laggy, sloppy tracking system which ultimately limits the kind of experiences you're going to have with the PlayStation VR. You can, for instance, completely forget about anything room scale. You won't be able to get up and move around and completely interact with your environment. Mostly it's fine for forward-facing, seated experience. So about the games then. Now obviously we can't test everything, but of those I did try, Thumper is a fun little musical game using just the standard PlayStation controller. Very immersive, but playing with just a controller is the same sort of problems as on the Oculus Rift right now in that it's a very static experience. PS Worlds, on the other hand, is a collection of 10 to 15 minute VR demos, all of which have been designed from the ground up for VR, so you'd expect them to be top-notch. Unfortunately, London Heist, which was my favourite of the bunch, using the Move controllers was also where I experienced the most tracking issues, which kind of detracted from the overall gameplay. Eve Valkyrie, a space combat sim, is pretty much the same as you'd find on the Oculus Rift. A really fun arcade shooter set in space. However, the lower resolution of the PSVR headset is a lot more evident in this one as you have a lot of distant objects. I also tried the Drive Club demo and to be honest, it gave me a headache. It's also worth noting the price of some of these games. Since one of the biggest draws of the PlayStation VR is the cost, it's $400 compared to $800 for a desktop-based solution. However, the games are mostly priced at console pricing of around $50 to $60. So something to bear in mind if you're expecting to buy a lot of games. The cost is going to really add up and perhaps negate some of the difference between saving up for a desktop headset with cheaper games or buying the cheaper hardware to start with and spending more on the games over time. So should you buy a PlayStation VR? Well, if you already own a PS4 or you're planning on getting the PS4 Pro, then I think the PSVR headset is a great investment and you're going to really enjoy it, particularly if you haven't had any experience with some of the other higher end headsets yet. Just bear in mind that you're going to be limited to pretty much seated games with a standard controller, which is probably what you're most familiar with, so that won't bother you too much. With the backing of Sony and lots more games to come from big development studios, you won't suffer so much from the lack of content that's perhaps plagued the other systems for early adopters. If, however, you already own an HTC Vive or an Oculus Rift, there is absolutely no reason to get the PlayStation VR, even if you already have a PS4. Unless you're absolutely desperate to play some of the specific games that are only available and exclusive to the PS4, you already have a far superior headset in the form of the Vive or the Rift. If you don't yet have a VR system of any kind, though you do already perhaps have a high-end gaming machine, I would suggest that you probably wait and save up until you can afford one of the higher-end headsets to play with your gaming machine. Don't rush out and buy a PSVR just because it's a bit cheaper. In the long run, those cost savings will probably equal out anyway with the price of the games, and you'll be missing out on probably half of what the whole VR experience has to offer. It's not that the PlayStation VR itself is underwhelming, it's just underwhelming compared to the higher end headsets. Anyway, if you'd like to win our test bundle of the headset and a PlayStation to go with it and 2 Move controllers as well as the PS Worlds game, then please hit up the link in the description or head on over to MakeUseOf.com, where you can enter to win all of those. Thank you for watching, and please do subscribe to this channel if you'd like to be notified of our twice weekly gadget giveaways, reviews and technology tutorials from all of us at MakeUseOf.com.